Walking through the forests and the fields in the plains of Ukraine, the great Rabbi Nachman of Breslov, about 200 years ago, turned to his student and told him, "You should know that every single one of these blades of a grass or a weed has a special tune of its own, and every single field together joins in beautiful song, and that song influences the shepherds that take their sheep to graze over there, and they all come with such a beautiful music, and therefore it is great and beautiful to pray among those parts of nature in the forests and the fields, because the song of the grass and the song that you sing to God join and ascend together to God." Little did Rabbi Nachman of Breslov know that about 200 years later, those same words would be inspiring and immortalized by a great poetess and a secular woman from a Lithuanian Jewish family. Her family was from Vilna, living on Kibbutz Kinneret in Israel. The name of this woman was Naomi Shemer. Naomi Shemer, the great author of Yerushalayim Shel Zahav and many, many other famous Israeli songs, took these words of Rabbi Nachman of Breslov and drew inspiration from them. She saw them as inspiring, composed them, rewrote them, and really inspired many with these words of Rabbi Nachman of Breslov. What is it about music that is able to carry and uplift people in such a profound way? Nations unite around a national anthem. Armies are able to march with great vigor to the sound of musical marches. Individuals can be lifted out of depression and difficult emotional states with music, or given a solemn attitude towards something when listening to appropriate music. What is it about music that's able to change things? It's somehow able to disrupt and stop everything. The Midrash tells us about Parshat Beshalach, where we are told that Moses and the Israelites, after they crossed the sea, sang a song to God, Az Yashir Moshe V'nei Yisrael. The Midrash says there has never been someone who sang a song to God until Moses and the Israelites came along. It wasn't Adam, it wasn't Eve, it wasn't Abraham, it wasn't Isaac, it wasn't Jacob, it wasn't Joseph. None of those sang a song to God. You know who sang a song to God? It was Moses and the Israelites after they crossed the sea. Why is it that the Israelites sang this song? Why is it? What is it about this song that was able to transform everyone? And the answer is, song is really something that stops everything. It stops the clock and enables us to look at a completely different sphere of things. Rabbi David Cohen, the rabbi of Gan Yavne in Israel, points out that if you look at Az Yashir, there is one word you will never see, and that is the word Mitzrayim, Egypt. You will never see the word Mitzrayim in Az Yashir. Why? The Jews just left Egypt. This is all about the Exodus. It's about freedom. And yet you will see no mention of slavery. You will see no mention of Egypt in Az Yashir. There's a mentioning of the splitting of the sea, the miracles that were done, but you will not see a mentioning of Egypt. And the reason for that is because what are the Jews focused on now? Mikdash Hashem konenu yadecha. God, one day you will bring us to the temple in Jerusalem. Tevi'emo v'tita'emo b'char nachalatcha. You will plant us in the land of Israel. Yes, we are penniless and downtrodden slaves standing on the shores of the Red Sea, just processing what we've been through, but our minds are already in an independent Israel and a sanctified Jerusalem. And that is the idea of music. Music is able to carry us out of the here and now and take us to divine, sublime, and transcendent spheres that only a really great inspiration can take us to. It is the same kind of inspiration that took some Jews who were Auschwitz bound on cattle carts in the most subhuman and torturous conditions thinkable, when Germans stuffed them into trains by their thousands, headed to Auschwitz. Is there anything to be hopeful about? Is there anything to be inspired by in such horrendous and unthinkable conditions? And yet at this moment, what were they thinking about? So many of them, they were singing Ani Ma'amin, I believe, Beviat HaMashiach, the famous tune Ani Ma'amin Beviat HaMashiach. And so as the Jews were standing on those trains, their minds were not in the gray countryside of Poland or in the dark shadows of Auschwitz. Their minds were in Biat HaMashiach, in Lashana Haba'a Yerushalayim. That is the power of music. It is the power of something that can transcend everything and take us into a completely different sphere. This coming week, we will be celebrating Tu Bishvat. And it is this kind of inspiration of music that allows us to look far beyond where we are now, that inspired the founders of Israel 130, 150 years ago to look at a completely barren, dry land with swamps, cholera, and many, many, many diseases, very little fertile land, to look at it and say, you know what this land can be? This land can be filled with greenery and trees. And that is the inspiration for the JNF, the Jewish National Fund. And it really enabled them to look beyond what it was then and now, and to bring us to the situation today where by now hundreds of millions of trees have been planted in Israel. Israel is the only country that year after year has a net gain, not a loss, of trees planted. And so it's that inspiration of looking beyond the here and now that enabled Moses to sing the song. It's that inspiration that enabled Jews to say, we will establish the Jewish National Fund. Small Jewish communities spared their last pennies in order to plant a tree in the land of Israel. And that is the power of Tu Bishvat. The Talmud debates, there's a debate between the Jerusalem Talmud and the Babylonian Talmud as to why we celebrate Tu Bishvat at the date we do. One opinion is that the reason Tu Bishvat is at this time of the year is because most of the rain of the year has passed, and all of the sap that's in the tree, all the energy that the tree needs for the coming year is already in it. Its potential is fully there, and that is why we celebrate Tu Bishvat. And the other position is that the tree no longer draws on the rains of last year, but it's a fresh set of rain, and it's looking forward to the coming year. That is the power of Tu Bishvat. It is the power of reinvigorating, of looking forward, of being able to see a future that may not exist right now in practice, but is definitely there in potential. So may all these powerful lessons of looking into the future, of Moses and Bnei Israel singing about the temple in Jerusalem, about the Jews being able to transcend the painful moments they were in, the tragedies they endured, and the difficulties that were ahead of them, and always to look at a more sublime future. May we be blessed with that. There's always challenges, there's always difficulties, there's what to be cynical and cautious about, and even worried, but there's also a great potential ahead that we can always look forward to and hope for best. Wishing everyone a very happy Tu Bishvat and a Shabbat Shalom.